All right, we've talked about old people, 55 and up, the golden age. Let's talk about the platinum age, which are younger people and families coming through. For the longest time, we've been told about the brain drain, young people leaving and such, and I don't know if you realize it, but on your program this year, for the first time in 10 years, there's actually a panel on jobs and youth, which is a departure because you normally do housing and stuff. So what are you doing for the platinum age, for younger people, in terms of getting them and getting younger families? How are you supporting that demographic? Somebody else. Then come back to you, Joe. Then come back to you.
I think the first thing is jobs, right? So I think what the supervisor-elect in Hempstead is going to have to do is figure that out, because the hub is a potential tremendous magnet. But I think also dovetailing on the last discussion about affordable housing, which usually isn't discussed because it's a little bit controversial, is accessory apartments. And I think that there are very few municipalities, Westbury is one, that does allow accessory apartments in certain districts.
What does accessory parking mean?
It's essentially a permitted apartment in a single family or a two-family home, which is registered and has a license to be utilized. A lot of people don't like it because they think it waters down the single-family character of your community. And I don't think it's appropriate for every community or every part of every community, but I think it's an essential part of providing housing, whether it's for seniors or for college students or young professionals who want to live in the community. It's another option that a community can have to create housing that's more affordable. There's a fair amount of affordable housing in the central Nassau County. Unfortunately, a lot of it is illegal. And I think municipalities have to examine their zoning codes to figure out if there's a way to either legalize some of those apartments and make them more accessible, or for some communities to say, this is another way to provide housing for young people and older people or all people. But I think it's a key point that's usually missing in the equation, and it's something which I think is happening already. It's something that needs to be recognized, because if it's legalized and it's formalized, it'll be safer and more accessible housing.
I said accessory parking. I meant accessory apartments, just to clarify. But I guess define what an accessory apartment looks like. Is this going back to having kids live in their parents' basement, or are you looking to upgrade that experience a little bit?
Well, generally you can't have a legal basement apartment in most instances. No, it's generally speaking, if you take the example of a senior citizen who wants to stay in their home, can't afford the taxes, can't afford to be there, and wants to rent a part of their house that's rentable, because it maybe has separate entrances and whatnot, to a young couple who has maybe a baby, or a young professional who needs to live close to a train line. So it's something that needs to be regulated, something that zoning codes need to address, so that you don't have the abuses that happen when you have rentals in these types of districts. But it's something where I think there's plentiful opportunities to do it, and I just think you have to be selective as to where you choose to do it and where it's appropriate to do it. But as I said, it's already happening on Long Island already. You already have people who are doing this, but they're doing it in an unregulated manner, and which means it's not as safe as it should be. It's not inspected like it should be. But I think that if you were able to have more accessory apartments in more areas, you would have more young people who are able to stay here that maybe aren't staying here now.
Have you all done much with, I know that Huntington had done something with legalizing, but Chad ran out on this, but we'll get back to him at some point.
Joy, in Islip, the Long Island Housing Partnership quite a number of years ago built a number of attached townhome kind of units that were owner-occupied with an accessory apartment that had to be rented by a senior. And it really is a beautiful model when you think about it, because relationships develop, the senior is there when the kids come home from school. And just the other day I had a meeting with some of the people from our community development agency and was talking about that and wanting us to get back into doing more of that kind of housing.
Define senior?
Well, I guess over 65 or so.
Thank Jesus. Okay.
Or so.
Or so. All right. Joe, now you guys had a code that allowed for younger people and older people to stay. You got sued for that, right? And that suit's still pending in the federal government?
Right now, that suit's not going anywhere. But what's so nice about this issue, our vision dovetails so well with the downtown revitalization, providing platinum housing for next generation, for Generation X, works well. They want to be in the downtowns. They want to be nearby railroad stations. Our transit-oriented development of downtown Hicksville is a perfect example. By providing young people smaller housing, affordable housing, a close walk to our railroad station is something that will continue to attract people and provide the housing units they need. Our concept of the High Line is a nice way to connect it all. A High Line, as New York City has experience, provides entertainment space, cultural space, but a wonderful way to be walking from the clusters of housing to the shopping mall and all coming back to the railroad station. Gives people a reason in the busiest Long Island Railroad station in all of Long Island, the highest volume in Hicksville. It gives people, especially young people, what they're looking for from work, transportation, and housing. And we find this is one of the best ways to solve this issue.
Can I ask you guys, how many of you all have kids who have moved away from Long Island? Show of hands. Okay. Of your kids who have moved away from Long Island, let me ask you again. How many of you have had kids who have moved away from Long Island who are thinking about or have returned to Long Island? There's 1, 2, 3. Okay. Maybe when they get kids and they want to come back out for more suburban. We went through the summer of hell, kind of, sort of, over the summertime. Were there any lessons from that for the municipalities in terms of transportation, in terms of where housing is, in terms of how people can get to work? We talk a lot about transit-oriented housing, but that was one instance where it would have been nice to be able to walk someplace or grab a cab. How did you guys get through that? What implications were there for you? What was it like over in Farmingdale during the summer of hell?
We had, in fact, I was just talking with Peter we're both on the main line, and we noticed no difference whatsoever in the summer of hell. The summer of hell may have been someplace else, but it certainly wasn't in Farmingdale.
Go.
I think we got through it probably because there was certainly increased communication and information that came out to everybody so that people could plan appropriately.
Before we go, we have a student summit going on, so we're going to get a couple questions from down there. But before we do that, we've heard from everyone, yes? Because I checked you all off. Bob, you and I talk later. Anything you want to add on the end there? No. Let's summarize. Yeah, we have time. Let's go through. What would you want this audience to take away in terms of what they should expect in the future from Long Island, from the towns and from the villages going forward?
Well,
Quickly. Go.
Okay. Nobody's mentioned, we've had a presentation on, we're talking about affordable housing and millennials in particular before. Has anybody out there seen a presentation on mini apartments? Mini apartments are a concept specifically around the train station where they're limited to approximately 300 square feet, which is obviously mini, and their purpose is specifically for the millennials, and one of the things possibly, don't know, is that could keep the millennials on Long Island. The other problem is it's a 300 square foot apartment, and very, in my opinion, very mini. I'd like, if somebody, if another area on Long Island has seen them, please seek out the poor, humble mayor of the village of Farmingdale, because it's a concept that may be useful.
That's interesting. There are many houses I know as well.
I think, over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see tremendous improvements on Long Island, especially along the main line, with the third track project that's coming into play, with the DRI in Westbury and in Hicksville, which are kind of neighboring, communities. There's going to be a tremendous amount of activity going on. There's going to be a tremendous amount of infrastructure improvements going on. I know in Hicksville they're going to be getting enhanced parking. In Westbury we're going to be getting enhanced parking. We're going to be getting new train stations. With our DRI project, we're going to be doing an extensive rezoning around the train station, and we're going to be seeing a lot of redevelopment. So I think those things are going to be tremendously active in the next several years. I'm hoping that in the town of Hempstead they can finally figure out what they want to do over at the hub, because I think it does come back to jobs and economic development. There has to be a reason for people to be here. I think a lot of the things we're doing on our downtowns are good to draw people, but for people to be able to live here, they need good jobs. And I think and also probably at the Belmont site, those are the two places where I think a regional solution needs to be had. But I think there's going to be a lot going on in the next 5 to 10 years.
Joe?
In the town of Oyster Bay, you can expect tremendous redevelopment of our downtowns. Hicksville is just one of the many examples. Thanks to Governor Cuomo and the MTA, we have a $132 million rebuilding of our railroad station, multi-level parking coming in to solve that problem. So you'll see that redevelopment on the large scale, but also on the small scale in all of the downtowns that have railroad stations. So many developers want to come in and do beautiful rehabs and housing opportunities and mixed use. In addition to that, we're looking at solutions to problems that have been plaguing us, just like Long Island, for so many years. Case in point is an opportunity to remediate the Grumman Navy plume. As part of that process, there'll be many good construction jobs as we build the remediation facility. Byproduct of that is a tremendous amount of clean water after it's been filtered. So we'll be looking to attract businesses that need water. For instance, the manufacturing of chips is a type of process that requires a lot of water. By providing them low cost or free water, we're also attracting businesses and the high-paying jobs that come with them.
Take it away.
So in the town of Hempstead, I understand that I think this is the first time in 5 years that the town of Hempstead supervisor-elect, in this case, has come to one of these summits. So
I'm glad you said it, but go ahead.
I think we're going to see a new attitude towards really developing our downtowns, looking for growth, smart growth in the town of Hempstead. I know I have a partner in the county executive-elect, Laura Curran, in really moving things forward in the hub, which has been stalled since 2009, pretty much, for the most part. Paying attention to unincorporated areas of the town of Hempstead that have been neglected for far too long. Last night I was at an event in Baldwin, and some people who were not at the event just stopped me on the way and said, okay, we've been waiting for 17 years. Is Baldwin actually ever going to be redeveloped? I know my colleague on the town board, Councilwoman Erin King-Sweeney, and I both share a desire to actually push that forward. So you'll see movement finally in Baldwin and in other parts of the town of Hempstead. So it's going to be a new day in the town of Hempstead.
A new day. Angie, quick. Oh, did I wake you up? I'm sorry. Quickly, just say what you expect from the town in the future.
Well, there are quite a few projects that are in their infancy stages. We have the Central Islip corridor that I spoke of earlier, but New York Tech has closed the campus there. About 14 acres of it have been sold to a developer who is redeveloping the existing buildings that were there. It's called the Sunburst area of the parcel. And from what I understand, there are 82 acres and there's a potential buyer. No details to be shared at this point, but it all sounds very, very exciting, the potential for it. In the Oakdale area, where Dowling College closed, we're working with the community there. They are very concerned that the integrity and the historic character of the buildings be preserved, and we share that vision, and have just started the initial stages to create a PLP, a Planned Landmark Preservation District. And we have met with representatives of the new owners of the property who are from Taiwan, and they're planning to put an educational facility, a master's program in business. So that is conducive to what has gone on in the area before, and probably a little less intense than the liberal arts college was. So that seems to be going along nicely. As I said, the industrial corridor study that has finally been completed for Vets Highway is going to have us see some movement there, hopefully get rid of some of the derelict gas stations that are there and give opportunities to newer gas stations with convenience stores. We've outlined the parameters of, they have to be spaced apart. We don't want them one on top of another. And likewise with fast food, the landscaping requirements, the setbacks are far more aggressive than they have been in the past with a use like that. They have to be 100-foot setback with 40% landscaping in the front. So it will look nice as far as being practical and serviceable to the businesses that are around there that really don't have a place to run out to and get lunch. So there's a lot of exciting things happening in the town.
Thank you.
And Heartland.
Okay, now Ed and Paul. We've got two kids over there who want to ask questions.
Okay.
I want you
well,
to keep
we'll
them
be very
in mind.
quick then. I'll be
All right.
very quick. Someone once said geography is destiny. And Brookhaven still has a great deal of open space and developable land and communities that can take a look at it. Obviously, we're concentrating on focusing on Ronkonkoma Hub as our TOD and developing our second TOD in East Yaphank. But we're also looking at all of our communities from small to large. So, for example, an abandoned lumber yard in Rocky Point is now being turned into affordable housing for seniors, 600 square foot apartments, and you're going to see 42 apartments emerge right at the center of Rocky Point. There are several other developments like that. There's an effort for Concern for Independent Living that just finished their units that are all 100% affordable in Middle Island. Now they're looking at a site in Port Jefferson Station. So there's a lot of things happening. But the one thing that we tend to miss, which we've worked, and hopefully the governor will include in his budget, we try to get some funding from our Attorney General, is we have foreclosures. We have foreclosures that dot our landscape. And we put together a program with Long Island Housing Partnership and Long Island Builders Institute to take these and start a process, because some of them can't be saved, these zombie houses. They get knocked down. And we've been very active in knocking down the eyesores. We've knocked down 60 a year. We'll probably do 100 this year. But there is many of them that can be saved before people cut the pipes or do whatever else they do, or the squatters get in there, or a whole host of other things happen. And we could recirculate these as affordable housing for first-time home buyers and veterans. And we would love to do that. We're missing a golden opportunity to take what is lemons and make it lemonade and provide a housing solution, because not everyone, and I know you've talked a great deal about multifamily, and that's important, but some people are looking for the house because they're starting their families, or they come back, they're veterans, they're ready to go, they have a family, and they're looking for a housing situation. That is our focus and where we should be. I see my friend Frank Petrone over there. Is that Frank over there in the audience? I'm used to you being up here, Frank. Good to see you. Anyway, thank you.
You know, we've talked a lot about downtowns. Village of Patrick, 12,500 people, 10,000 of them live in single-family residence. Unless we not forget that we got to take care of those areas. We're putting $5 million into our parks of a grant that we got from a private foundation. We have paved almost 65% of the roads within the village. Senator Croce gave us money for sidewalks into the residential areas, and we have a downtown to park sidewalk program, so you can walk from the downtowns and you can walk to our parks. So as we look to what we go forward, don't forget the guys down on Cedar Avenue that's been living there for 30 years and his sidewalk is cracked. As much as we have to take care of our downtowns, your downtowns are driven by the strength of your entire community. Our downtown is doing well. We got to make sure our residential community does just as well.
Thank you, sir. As I said, we have a youth conference going on the side here, and we have two youths, right? Eric, you introduced?
So sure, I just want to, before we get started, I do want to acknowledge Dr. Nathalia Rogers and Diane also. Dr. Nathalia Rogers from Berkeley College now, New York Youth Summit, working with Diane and a whole bunch of students that are here. We've done this multiple years. And I think August 20th, we're going into Berkeley College to bring August, sorry. So there'll be a youth summit. Long Islanders will be part of that and really now part of the region. But Karina's starting off from Amityville High School.
Hi, my name is Karina Aracena. I'm from Amityville High School. I keep hearing affordable homes, and it's a big issue in our community. So, for example, I live in Amityville, and I live in the same street, Briefly, where these portables were destroyed, and now they have these new buildings where they're extremely expensive. How are people affording that? So what is really affordable homes?
All right, before you go, can I ask this young woman, can you define affordable for us? What to your mind would be affordable?
Affordable for me is for a family who has low income to be able to pay a house where they can live with their family, not something that is above what they earn every day.
All right.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wesley Jean Pierre. I see Mr. Pontieri over there. I just want to further elaborate on Karina's question about, of course, affordable housing is great for all of us. However, we have to also promote the diverse communities that we live around today. We have to prepare ourselves for the diverse society we live under and also promote these methods and housing methods as well. I think it's very important for these housing developments to also have a large degree of racial and demographic equity as well in them. So, thank you.
All right, so I heard, well, I'm going to try to rephrase both your questions. What are you guys doing in terms of, one, housing that is actually affordable for families with young people who are having more and more difficulty affording here? And by the way, studies show that on Long Island, we pay significantly more for housing as compared to a larger percentage of our income for housing than other areas do, just so you know. So it's not just a certain segment, it's everybody, but you're talking specifically about one. And two, in terms of the island rapidly diversifying, what are you doing in your communities to sort of ease if there's tensions, if there's celebrations, how do you handle those things? Is that a fair restatement of your questions? Yes?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, I think we're kind of, just personally myself, I come from an immigrant background, so I'm someone that's kind of experiencing this diversifying of course, my local community. That I do see it around my people, however, I want to see different types of people in our society as well for me to be surrounded by. Thank you.
I also want to know, what is affordable home for you guys?
Okay, so they teed it up for you guys. Let's go. I'm going to take a step. We're going to start with Nassau. Why don't you all come a little closer so you can see? There they are, in case you didn't see them. Speak to them.
That's still on. I'm the mayor of Westbury, so Westbury is probably one of the most diverse economically
Can you
and
guys hear him?
racially and religiously.
Hang on, they can't hear you.
Is this on? Yeah, it's on now. Okay. So I'm the mayor of Westbury, and Westbury is probably one of the most racially, religiously, economically diverse communities on Long Island, and we celebrate that. Our DRI project, one of the 4 pillars of our DRI project was diversity and how we're going to promote diversity in the community going forward. And that has to do with housing options, that has to do with our Arts Council that has events that celebrate the different ethnic groups that we have in our village. Our village used to be Irish and German, and then we had African Americans who came, then we had Caribbean Americans who came. Now we have a large Hispanic population in our village. So it's probably demographically one of the most diverse communities. We have people who are at the highest income levels and people who are at the lowest income levels. Our housing stock, if you compare it to the communities around us, is more affordable than it is on the communities around us. Maybe that's coincidental, maybe it's not coincidental. But I think it's really behooves every community to try to figure out for itself how it's going to incorporate those things into their communities. The federal government and the state government have a say in that, and there are some lawsuits that are pending about, certain communities and how they integrate certain populations or don't integrate certain populations, how they have certain affordability and how they don't have certain affordability. But it shouldn't really come down to the federal government bringing lawsuits to force communities to do those things. Long Island, I think, is on a trajectory that it's going in that direction. My community happens to have been that way for a very long time, and we're really, really comfortable with that. And I just think some people get it and some people don't get it. Some people want to live in that type of an environment, and some people don't. The affordability issue, though, is a much more difficult issue, I think, just because you are on Long Island. There's a certain built-in expenses in terms of taxes, in terms of services, that government has to figure out how to address. We do it on the village level, on the towns. I'm sure they try, and I know some of the towns have tried very recently to try to figure out their economics to make it more affordable. The county's going to have to do that with our new county executive going forward. So affordability is always going to be an issue, but I think every community has to try to buy into that mentality of being inclusive, whether it's racially inclusive, whether it's economically inclusive. And I'm fortunate enough that I'm in a community that's had that history.
We are well on our way.
Can you hear them? I don't think they can hear you.
We're well on our way in Hicksville to developing the community of the highest level of diversity anywhere on Long Island. Our South Asian and Indian populations are the fastest growing in New York State. The Hispanic population continues to grow, and there's more opportunities than ever before. Making sure that we're building housing that is affordable to all is one of our largest goals. You had asked about what we think is affordable, and as we move along in years, one of the biggest issues that is on the forefront that we really have to get back to, and that's the costs of property taxes. I've worked with the teams in the New York State Assembly, and I'm calling on the Assembly and the Senate to come together on the issues we've been talking about for so many years. The unfunded mandates, bringing more funding for our municipalities and our school districts. This is one of the hidden dragons that's got to be slayed in this entire component, because as property taxes go up, it makes it very difficult to afford the housing. So that's something that has to be a big priority in terms of the overall package. But these smaller developments throughout our downtowns, near the railroad stations, developers are beating a path to our doors, and they want that, and so do we. So there's great opportunities, and by getting the property tax issue under control, we'll be able to enhance the number of businesses with high-paying jobs, so that we fill the other component to the issues that will keep you here.
I'm going to ask you to turn your back on Nassau for a minute, but not literally. I mean, well, literally, but not, you know what I mean. Go this way. Look at this here. They want to talk to you, too.
Okay, from the Suffolk side, certainly in the town of Islip, the largest Hispanic population outside the state of New York is outside of New York City, rather, is in Bayshore, Brentwood, CI. And we embrace that. And to the issue of the affordability and home ownership, We have a community development agency. In fact, in the next couple of months, we'll be having a lottery again because unfortunately, there is more need than there is supply. I think we have about 6 or 7 homes, brand new. These were zombie derelict properties that houses either got torn down or were totally rehabilitated. But these are beautiful new homes that will go to first-time home buyers. There will be a lottery. There's counseling and everything to qualify the applicants to make sure that they will be able to afford it going forward, working with them on credit counseling and all other kinds of issues to make sure that they can eventually realize the American dream.
Brookhaven is diverse and is becoming more diverse. We have communities like Patchogue, North Bellport, Gordon Heights, Massac Shirley, Massac Beach, communities where diversity is growing every day. So we're a town in the state of New York. Brookhaven's the largest town by size and second by population, only second to Hempstead with over 500,000 people. We're a very diverse town. As far as affordable, there's a lot of people that will tell you when they bought their first home, it wasn't affordable, but it is now. And that's true for a lot of people. When you buy a house, you usually know that you're making an investment because you pray to God that that investment is going to grow. And when you buy it, a lot of people extend themselves for the first time. But as the longer they live in that house, they build equity. And the house they didn't think they could afford becomes extremely affordable and valuable towards the end. It's a matter of time. But getting affordable housing, best thing that we can do is take the remnants of the recession of 2008 and take those foreclosures and convert them into affordable housing for first-time home buyers and for veterans and give an opportunity. And when I tell you, we had at one point over 2,000, we're down to about 1,500 foreclosures that dot the town. We could make a huge dent in providing affordable housing for people. And that's something that I hope the state listens to. I know Long Island Housing Partnership and Long Island Builders Institute are lobbying with me to get that program underway.
And I'm going to take your last question. You asked, do we consider affordable? I consider my home to be more affordable now than ever, now that I don't have any more college tuition to pay. Just getting started on that. Thank you guys for asking your questions. Thank you all for your attentiveness. And I'd like to thank the panel. I took a look out there. You didn't put anybody to sleep. And that, I think, is something worth carrying throughout the rest of your day. You did a good job. Thank you all so much.
All right, guys, before we go, before we go, a couple things. One, Suffolk Legislator-elect Steve Flotteren. Where are you, Steve? Steve. Nassau County Legislator Arnie Drucker. Where are you, Arnie? Nassau Legislator Ellen Birnbaum. Former Town Councilman Jimmy Tullo. And former Mayor of Mastic Beach Morris Sperry. Now, guys, I got a final point that obviously we hear from everyone that there is bottom-up planning, there is downtown development, there is affordable housing happening, there's 40 downtowns doing TODs, there's over 100 projects, there's 13,000 units approved in the last 12 years. I was reading some of that RPA report out of Manhattan that was kind of saying things aren't happening. How many people in this room had communicated with RPA in their process over the last 5 years? Just raise your hand. One. There's 600 people in this room. Two. Anyone else? Anyone have been in communication with RPA on their master plan for the region? Last year I asked this question, nobody answered. I asked it at breakfast and lunch. So it doesn't mean their plan isn't great. It doesn't mean there aren't good ideas that we want to move forward for as a region, but we have to communicate, we have to participate,
and we need them to listen to us. We need to listen to them, but has to come together. It can't be top down. Long Island does not work top down. It works bottom up. And so we got to take this story here that we're working with day to day and today and bring it forward and be a little bold and communicate what we're doing, because there's a lot of good work here, guys. So with that, let's move to our next sessions. We got 2 great sets of panels, and we'll see you back at lunch, guys. Thank you.